We're now live. We're now live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Comic. I'm your host, Fuller, and today we're diving into another dark and mysterious world called Dime Store's Detective. A gripping noir meets horror story about a detective, Donald Mackinder, and hunting secrets that refuse to stay buried. Our guest tonight is Jon Dexter, the creator of Dime Store Detective and Alpha Dogs, two standout indie series that balances raw human emotions with high-stakes storytelling. John been making waves in the indie scene, and we are going to explore how he built his creative universe, his process for self-promotion, and his lessons he learned building an audience through Kickstarter and Lunar Distribution. So grab your coffee, your flashlight, and let's step into the mystery. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you. I try my best. So, John, welcome to Behind the Comics. Let's start from the beginning. What kind of first inspired you to create comics?
Yeah, so is that music from me or okay? I was trying to figure out where the music comes from. um, yeah, so I was a '90s teen. I had watched a lot of X-Men, and that kind of exposed me to the comic book genre, and I became a huge fan. So after that, I was kind of using my paper route money to buy back issues of X-Men, anything that had to do with Wolverine and Sabretooth. That kind of instilled in me my love of comic books when I was a teenager.
You said Sabretooth. I've never seen someone highlight Sabretooth like that before.
I love the dynamics between Wolverine and Sabretooth
They're
throughout their
technically blood
history.
brothers, so yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. It was great dichotomy between the two of them, and if Wolverine had pushed just a little bit to one way, he could have been like the next Sabretooth. So it's a great story between them and their relationship. So I really dug it, and that kind of introduced me to my love of comics when I was a teenager.
Okay, so you were you always drawn to like the darker detective side of storytelling, or did you develop that later in your career?
I've loved film noir.
Mm.
Old, gritty, hard boiled stories. Humphrey Bogart's Maltese Falcon, a lot of the '40s movies, and just the pulp magazines. I mean, I didn't really read them because a lot of them are, a little hokey, but they still had a lot of the aesthetics of the art really drew me in. And just the melodrama of that with a cop, and you'd have like a crazy scientist, or that '50s, '40s, '30s look to them. I always loved it. I was a big fan of Ed Wood. I don't know if you ever heard of that movie back in '94, the B movies and whatnot. So all that kind of resonated with me, and I'd always wanted to tell a detective mystery. I watched True Detective, LA Confidential. I
Mm.
loved those. So I wanted to kind of put my stamp on it. So what I did is I wrote that, and I wanted to do something different than anybody else. So there's a supernatural story to it. So it's not just your typical, detective mystery. It's got the supernatural element to it. So the story is about this detective Donald Mackinder in North Georgia, around the Appalachian Mountains. He is a cop that's kind of the bane of the city hall and the department, where he goes out there and does the work. He doesn't kiss butt or anything like that, and he has a very history of his family who are former moonshiners back 40 years earlier. Yeah, they end up going to war with the Dixie Mafia, who are a real gang in the South, and they end
Mhm.
up this family of five generations of moonshiners that try to get pushed out. They try to push them out of their business, and they end up going to war with them. Well, the detective's father and uncle, 40 years earlier, end up going into this cave, hidden cave in the Appalachian Mountains. And in this cave is this evil being that's been trapped there for hundreds of years by the Cherokee. And the two brothers ignore the hieroglyphics on the inside the cave and release it. And the thing ends up possessing the detective's uncle 40 years earlier. And somehow this evil entity may or may not have returned in the present that's tied to this serial killer that the detective is investigating in the present time. So, really rich history, really cool story. And it's actually got a publisher, which is really cool.
So there's a lot to digest right there, right? Because this
Yeah,
is
there is.
because when I just listened to it, I heard a lot of like the Appalachian Mountains, for example. That's right,
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, like that. And then you're talking about Dixie gangs and stuff like that. So it's like I'm like I know these names, like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and then you talk about Noir as an art style, and
Hmm.
that's a very I would, because I want to say recently, I want to say this year, I kind of dove down in kind of different art styles, and that one kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't get it, but it's kind of cool. I like the lines and
Mhm.
everything that goes with it. So
Yeah, it's
it's
got its own
so
look.
it has a very nice look. So
Hmm.
thanks for giving us that backstory, right? And we're going to break down a lot of stuff in terms of the process. You've been steady building your name in the indie comic scene. What was your journey as an independent creator look like so far?
A lot of hard work. I wouldn't
How
recommend
long?
to anybody
Actually, that's
unless
a
you
very
want
good
to
question.
put
How
the
long have you
work
been
in.
at it?
'Cause
How long
how
have you
long
been
have
at
I
it?
been?
Go
Um,
ahead.
oh boy. So I did my first indie comic. Oh, it was well over 10 years ago. It was a total disaster. I ended up just saying I'm not doing this anymore. It was just a big disaster, and then I could help myself. I just love writing, and I love indie comics. That I in 2021 I released Alpha Dogs issue 1 on Kickstarter, and it's kind of built from there. And then I brought in my other title, Dime Detective. So I'm kind of going back and forth. I have a single
Mm,
issue of one comic I wrote called Space Cruise, and I wrote that many years ago. That I was able to fund based on the success of Alpha Dogs on there. So I've got 3 titles out right now. All of them are currently on Kickstarter on the Dumpster Detective Volume 1 campaign.
so are you running all three at the same time, or you just run them one at a time?
No, I'm just running one right now.
Okay.
But you can get all of my comics on the Kickstarter on one of my pledges. You can get all my comics on
Oh,
one of the pledges for my Dumpster Detective Volume 1.
okay, okay. That's a good way of kind of giving people access to the bundle.
Yeah,
What are some of
absolutely.
your what are some of your early creative influence that help you shape your tone and storytelling style? You know you touched on it earlier, but
Yeah.
what are
So for Dumpster Detective, I was a big Raymond Chandler fan. So he writes novels, these hard boiled novels in the 40s. I just love the way he writes. And again, I wanted to kind of write a detective story that was kind of like somebody similar to one of his characters, where they were kind of, went against the grain and didn't follow procedures. Now, his stories, it's a private investigator, but I just loved his dialogue, the way his detective spoke. And so that was influenced Raymond Chandler stories. Also, I'm a big fan of Brian K. Vaughan, Ed Brubaker. Ed Brubaker writes some of the best. He's probably the best, of that hard-boiled detective stories in comic books. So those guys, and Brian K. Vaughan, the way he can have a juxtaposition where he's got all these different stories going on that kind of tie together. He also wrote Lost, which you could obviously tell in his work. All these different storylines kind of coming together. So those are big influences. Of course, Chris Claremont is a huge influence on me. He was my first idol in comics.
okay. That's a lot. There's a lot of different influences that you have there because you already picked up very interesting with noirs, right? And then you're going down the rabbit hole with
Mm-hmm.
like the storytelling style kind of way of doing it. There's so much there, and I think actually this is a good opportunity for us to segment into the next section about just talking about Diamond Stories Detective, right? Um,
Yeah.
So, for those new to the series, how would you describe Dime Detective in your own words?
Yeah, so Dumpster Detective is a supernatural thriller mixed in with a mystery that spans 40 years. We go back and forth in the story. So whenever it's in color, it's in the present when the detective Mackinder is on a hunt for a serial killer.
Mhm.
Whenever it turns to the sepia tone, it's when we flash back 40 years earlier when the detective is 8 years old. And as I said, his father and uncle are these moonshiners in North Georgia. They're kind of feared and respected in the county. They end up having to do battle with the Dixie Mafia, which, like again, was a real gang of hitmen. They drug runners. They did everything bad you could possibly do. And in my story, though, they kind of, like I said, try to push him out of business, and so the detective has to try to figure out how this serial killer and how this evil entity is returned, because the detective Mackinder in the present, he has just failed to embrace. He refuses to believe that his uncle actually was possessed by this evil being. We don't know if it's a demon. We don't know if it's an alien. We don't know what it is yet. We just know it's pure evil. And so
Why can't
when
they
we
be
open up in the
possessed by
story,
good things? That's so
the
funny.
latest, huh?
No, I just find it funny that every time there's a
So when we
possession,
open
it's
up on
always
the
bad.
story,
Go ahead, go ahead. Sorry about that.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say we open up on the story with this woman hanging nude in this kind of Christ-like pose in the Appalachian Mountains in these trees, and
Mhm.
she's left over the burial grounds that the detective's father and uncle had buried multiple bodies 40 years earlier when they were involved with their moonshiner war. So we know that somehow this serial killer is trying to get the detective Mackinder's attention by leaving this woman over the basically the shallow graves of 40 years ago that became unearthed. So she also has a bottle of moonshine shoved down her throat. That was what the bottle of moonshine is what the Mackinder family used to bottle their moonshine. So the serial killer is trying to get Detective Mackinder's attention. We don't know why, and but we'll find out as the story slowly comes together with these 5 issues that are currently on Kickstarter for Volume One, and it'll be 9 issues in all when it's all said and done.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I was actually going to ask you that at a later point, but it's kind of funny because now I'm thinking about it, and I have to ask: the story exploring both the personal demons and the supernatural horrors. Where did the idea for Detective McKender's journey come from? Was that personal? Was it like where did it come from?
So I had heard of the story of the Dixie Mafia, and they had heard the story about this kid whose father was in a he was a hitman for them. He was a drug runner. I mean, he was like
Mm,
he opened up his trunk once, and his son looked in the back. This is back in the '60s. The son looked in the trunk and seen cinder blocks and rope, so he knew his dad was killing people. But it didn't matter to this kid. He just worshipped his dad. His dad could do no harm, and I just thought, well, that's such an interesting dynamic that you could love your father so much and idolize him so much that even though he's a murderer, he's runs drugs, that you still have this loyalty to him. So that was kind of the genesis of how I built this relationship between the father and the son. But originally, it was basically just a straight up detective mystery when I first had wrote it, and then when I heard about the Dixie Mafia, I thought to combine those two elements would make a story that is one of the most original stories you're going to find in indie comics. I really would challenge anybody to, if they read an issue, not to say, "Wow, this is something I've never read before," because most of my work is very original.
okay, cool. And I know of some people that like to keep it original, that not try copying other people's style or stuff, or better yet,
Mm-hmm.
mainstream stuff. They don't want to copy that. They
Yeah,
want something different. And I like that because then when you think about it as an IP play, no one can call you out.
yeah, yeah.
So the theme of family and legacy plays a big role in this comic, right? So how do you balance that emotional depth with the horror and the mystery element? Because I feel like you're trying to strike a tone with the family bonds there, but at the end of the day, it's a supernatural movie, so it's kind of like people just like to be scared. So how you kind of play that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the best stories when you can go from one extreme. You're building and building and building, whether it be a comedy, whether it be an adventure, whether it be whatever. And then instead of going down and then basically having to build it back up again, well, I build it up to this one peak, and then I'm able to switch to build to another peak that I think is just entertaining. So, for example, I'm trying to think of a movie here with a lot of comedy and adventure, like the Avengers. So the Avengers has this, people dying from Thanos and all this terrible things that happens in this action. But then they insert all this comedy in there to kind of change your emotion. So there's never a dull moment really in the Avengers movies, because they're able to change gears and always keep people entertained. And that's kind of how I try to write as well with my stories, to have kind of two different genres to meld them together. That way the reader is always entertained, and you're not just going off this one I don't call it juxtaposition, but this one thread throughout the story, because it kind of gets a little dull when you do that. But so I like to insert a little different genres in my stories.
And I'm assuming you use the characters to kind of do that, right? Because I remember when I'm
Yeah.
doing it with my comic, it's kind of like each character has its own little background that kind of helps when I'm trying to flip it to mystery, or should I say like gangster style stuff. I go one way with the character, but then if I want to go detective way, I go to a different way with a different character.
Hmm.
So it's kind of
Yeah.
like the ability to just show in the character does change the story dynamics. It's so fun to watch. Um,
Yeah.
so what
Absolutely.
kind of so what kind of atmosphere or emotions were you trying to capture when you wrote the story?
So definitely, I wanted to get that mystery, that spooky nature of the story, but also wanted to have a heartwarming story between the love of a father and a son, and the
Mm,
sacrifices that the father makes to try to protect his son, which he does, that you'll find out as the story goes along. So any good story, I think, has that action, whether it be a thriller or a mystery, but then it actually has a lot of heart, and so that people can identify, because the best stories are always ones where you could have empathy towards the main character. You can actually not even write a great story, but if you can identify, have empathy for your main character, it's going to really drive it much farther, and people are going to enjoy it.
and I think so too. A lot of times we try to make sure that our characters, especially our main characters, are relatable, and
Hmm.
it's kind of hard because it's like the best way to make a character relatable is kind of make the villain kind of villainy. The better the
Yeah.
villain, the more relatable the character becomes.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's one reason Spider-Man, Peter Parker, has been enduring for so long in so many favors, because everybody can identify with Peter Parker.
True, true. That's exactly true. The struggles of being a meta human, right?
Yeah.
uh, so we're gonna switch segments again, real quick. But before we do, I'm going to actually have to pay some bills. So let me talk about my sponsor real quick,
There you go.
and then we jump right back in. Okay, where'd my thing go? All right, 1 second. Uh,
This video is sponsored by MyComic.ai, the first of its kind platform built to solve real struggles comic creators like us face. If you've ever felt stuck trying to make consistent sales from your work, this is your solution. MyComic.ai helps you turn your comic into a real business and grow it into a full-time income stream. Check it out today at MyComic.ai.
and with that, we're back. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. As you have you been here before, you kind of used to my ads, so you get over it. It's like we
Hey,
gotta
gotta
pay
pay
bills.
the bills.
All right, so I do appreciate the opportunity. We've been having a great talk thus far, and now we get to talk to the second section where we actually get to talk about the process of creating. So let's talk process, right?
Okay.
So when you're developing your series like Dime Store Detective, where do you start? Characters, themes, visuals? How you kind of get started when you're getting your process going?
Oh, it's usually just I usually start, some idea will come to me. and then I'll just usually just develop that idea for a while. But early on, you got to have a theme. So your theme is kind of helps what guide you in the direction of the story. So usually I have an idea, and I'll have to say, okay, what am I trying to say? So that's one of the questions you got to say. Well, what am I trying to say? And then you go from there, and then you can kind of build your story around what the theme is and what you're trying to say in the story. Because if you don't have a theme, you really kind of you're not going to get very many readers, I don't think, or at least not any too many returning readers, because you have to have something, whatever it is you're trying to say, and you don't even have to really believe in what you're trying to say. You just, you have to have um, this theme to tie all the story together.
Okay, okay. So, so this brings up to the next topic, right? Because now you talk. I feel like you're coming from the writer's perspective. So that brings up to the next section of what does collaboration looks like with you. For example, how do you find and work with your creative team, like your artists, your colorists, your letters? How you kind of go through that process? And
So
do you
I
have
just
those
did a.
people? Do
I'm
you have those
sorry.
people on your team? I was going to say first, do you have those kind of people on your team? And question, how do you kind of find them and work with
Not so much. It's just me. But I hire the artist. I hire the colorist in the letter. I hire them, so
them?
I don't have much collaboration with anybody other than they'll send me their pages, and I kind of go through it and say, hey, this is good. I've got a perfect example today. They sent me some sketch pages, and he had a guy using both hands to push the door open, and I said, well, most people don't really use two hands to push the door because the character is trying to escape in a hurry. This is for Dempster Detective. He's trying to get out in a hurry, and he used both hands. I said, well, people don't really use both hands to push out the door. And then the artist was like, well, I'm trying to show that he's just afraid and trying to get out as soon as possible. So he's using two hands. And I thought, you know what, you're right. That does sound better. So it is a collaborative effort. You kind of give and take, and you always should never have an ego, and always listen to the best ideas. So if somebody has a better idea, I definitely take into consideration, especially if there's two of them, like the letter and the artist.
It's such
You just you're trying to push.
and you kind of bring up a good idea, right? Because you're right. There people now, because now when I think about someone using two hands to push open the door, I mostly think is either they're rushing or they're trying to scan the entire room at the same time, right? Unless they were
Yeah.
running, then I expect them to tackle the door. So
Yeah, well, he's running. He's running. He's trying to get away. Uh,
yeah,
so
so
yeah. So I
yeah, so
I
it's
went
a
with
very
their idea.
interesting way to say that. So yeah, and you're right. Taking input from your artists to kind of understand what they're trying to get across is so important because you want to make sure the tone and the tone that you're trying to manage from each scene carries out, and that's
Hmm.
not what you do when you have big abrupt changes in movement. That's the
Yeah,
best way to say
absolutely.
it. I wish I could call myself. I'm no longer an artist. I haven't drawn in a long time. But it's like the concept of how movement affects continuum. No, I call it continuum of movement affects the way the story feels. It's
Hmm.
it's very interesting because when I talk to very experienced drawers, that's
Hmm.
kind of what lets me know that this person know what they're doing because
Yeah.
they carry it through multiple panels to the point you're like, oh, you saw the entire thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely an art form. So hopefully you get a good artist.
So you're running a successful Kickstarter campaign. What have you learned about audience building and in community engagement through crowdfunding? And you want me to bring up your crowdfunding funding while we do that?
Sure, sure.
Uh, let's add to the state. Okay, add to the state. Wait, let's go. You can start. I'll bring it up eventually.
Oh, okay. What was the question again? Sorry.
I was asking you. You run successful Kickstarter campaigns before, so what is it
Oh,
like
oh,
to?
yeah, yeah. So really, you got to get a lot of followers. I would say you want to have at least 5,000 friends or followers on your socials, at least that, because it's really a numbers game. If you send an email to 1,000 people, well, 10 might answer it. You know what I mean? So you want to have as many people and get along pre-launch before you launch to try to get as many followers as possible to do it, because like I said, I've got 44 right now. I talk about it every day, post on my social images, the trailers and stuff. So it's definitely difficult because, like I said, I think it's like a 1% of people that are following you or on your email list actually back your project. So it's really a numbers game to get as many as possible. I go to Comic Cons. I was just at one this weekend to try to get an email list. That's very important to get as many subscribers as possible. So in the hopes of them backing your project, and then get on shows like yours to talk about it.
Exactly. And so right now we're just taking a look at the campaign, right? And we're looking at all the story, the stuff. You want me to play a video? I can actually go ahead and play the video if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great video.
All right, guys. And I'm turning the value, just making sure that you have these.
Hmm.
All right, let's make play because it looks cool. Don't worry, guys. It's a minute long. It's cool though. I love it. So you brought up the time when you said when it's colored, it's a present, but when it's like this is when you mean it's in the past.
Yeah, well, it used to be black and white, so that's a trailer from earlier when it's black and white. But now, once you look at the Kickstarter, the pages are now in sepia tone. So I made it much better than just this black and white. You will see when we look at the preview what the pages look like now.
Got it. Hmm. That's an interesting one. That's epic, and I like all this. I like what the person you got to do this animation. Props to them. They did a good job.
Yeah, I got a great team, and
I,
that's the
I
cover for the graphic novel.
and I will tell everyone, yo, the value of a team is we can't. I was going to say, is this the volume one? So okay, that's a graphic novel, and
Hmm.
the value of a good team. So how much pages are in your volume one?
Volume one is looking like it's going to be 130, a little over 130 pages. So there's plenty. And there's the sepia tones I was talking about. So all the instead of being black and white's in this beautiful sepia tone, it just really pops out of the page. So that's how I wanted to always do it. But it was expensive. But now that I have a publisher and it's going to be just going to be published through Source Point Press, I wanted to do it right and bring in the 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 color that I wanted to originally. So it looks a lot better. Has that much more of that noir style to it.
So is the publisher also helping with you with your Kickstarter? And tell me and show the audience right the value of a publisher while we're talking about it.
Yeah, there's value. They do help in the way that they'll post on their socials, my Kickstarter. So that's a big help, and they are able to get me into comic book stores, which is a huge help to kind of get my name out there. And it's currently on Amazon, not this one, but my other series, Times Alpha Dogs. Volume 1 is currently on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Walmart.com, Target.com, all sorts of places. So it helps to get your name out there.
Hmm. Okay. So guys, I just want to talk about how incredible setting up his Kickstarter is, and it's been very successful. He's literally only we almost there. It's literally under $200 to get to his to the end of his Kickstarter, and he has 17 days to go. So I know you're gonna get it.
Yeah, yep. Every little bit helps. So yeah, hopefully you can get there soon. I like I said, if anybody out there is watching, I would suggest to go check it out. Look at the pages, and you can also go back and look at old Kickstarters, the trailers for some of the other ones that I've done for Dumpster Detective, and I can just about promise you'll get excited about it. And like I said, it's a great story. It's very difficult to get signed by a publisher, so the fact that it's got a publisher is a testament that it is a good story.
Okay, cool. So and and I'm loving it. So Alpha Dog is gaining a lot of attraction and now it's on Lunar Distribution. What's that experience
Yeah.
been like, and what advice would you give creators looking to make that kind of leap?
Yeah, well, first I would ask anybody if you're out there to go to your local comic book store and ask them to pre-order Alpha Dogs issue one through Lunar. That way, I can help build it and get it into stores because it's very difficult, to call constantly and email to comic shops asking to order it. There's so many of them, but that's what you got to do to be a success. So it's been it's been great. It like I said, right now it's in pre-order, so you can pre-order it now. I don't know, what's how many it's going to get ordered yet or anything like that because it's still in the early stages. So hopefully it gets a lot of pre-orders and we'll see what happens.
Okay, cool. And I'm just checking again. So you're between Diamond Store Detective and Alpha Dogs. There's a consistent thread of grounding, emotional storytelling. How do you keep your stories distinct while still feeling like you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like they're two very different stories. Alpha Dog's about this dog that has the power to heal from any wound. He also has a heightened strength and intelligence. Him and his owner are on the run from mercenaries that are trying to kidnap him to possess his powers. And then other dogs come in the series to gain their own abilities. So there's two very different stories. I had worked on Alpha Dogs for about 5 years before I actually had it published on Kickstarter. So it's a lot of work,
I'm assuming there's people
and but
you just
it's a lot to go by.
yeah, and I'm assuming you just especially with Kickstarter you just got used to other people trying to spam you to try to get you to kind of sign up with them and stuff too. So you just got past that because that's a consistent theme I see recently where people are spamming you like,
Yeah,
oh, I'm like, dude, no. What
yeah,
does your
yeah. It does get a little annoying.
yeah? What role does your online presence play in promoting your comments, and how do you connect with fans across platforms?
Yeah, I just like I said, I post a lot on there, the Kickstarters, and just I don't know, with the algorithm, I get a lot of people about every day. Somebody is asking me to friend them on there, so it's
Mhm.
just I guess from years of doing this nonstop. And then I'm able to go to Comic Cons and talk to people that have backed it, and hopefully make some connections that way. And through posting things, you just don't want to post your Kickstarter because then it's spamming people, like you said. So I try to include other things in there to try to um, make connections with people, and that are usually funny things that I find.
Okay, so what can your readers expect next in both terms of upcoming issues as well as future projects you're developing?
Yeah. So after Dumpster Detective, then I'm not going to be doing anything again for Kickstarter until February when I launched Alpha Dogs issue 6. Then after that,
Hmm.
it'll be Dumpster issue 6. So I'm going back and forth. My goal is to get at least 4 Kickstarters for those two in 2026. That way, in 2027, at the end of that, I'll have finished those two stories. That's my goal. We'll see what
Okay.
happens, and then in 2028 is when I come out with the graphic novels for those. So, and then start another series. So it's all planned out. I mean, hopefully, if I'm
You have a
really fortunate,
process. Yeah.
yeah. If I'm fortunate, then they can really take off with these graphic novels being distributed through Lunar, and I can do them even faster. Because if I could, I'd release a comic every month, but it's just not cost feasible.
And I think a lot of, I would say, especially guys that been in it as long as you have, can speak a lot to the cost of ramping up your product in terms of not just time
Yeah,
but actual cost, because the each it's like each place gives you an audience, but not necessarily. No, sorry, they give you exposure, but not necessarily an audience. To me, an audience is
yeah,
people that will buy your
exactly.
stuff, but as the same thing, if you have foot traffic at a mall, that doesn't mean the people that's walking in the mall wants to buy your book. It just means that they saw your book. Versus,
Absolutely, absolutely,
yeah,
and
so it's
that's why you really have to have a lot of people following you, friending you, because, like I said, you only get about 1% of how many people that your friends or followers are on there. So you want to get as many as possible. Um, so that's the goal. We'll see.
as someone has been as consistent and has managed to get a lot of success with it, what would be a quotable moment for you to tell the upcoming creators who are working on their own comics? What would you want them to take away if they were to talk to you and be like, "Hey, I just got started. I feel stuck." What would be like your moment to share with them?
Don't do it. It's too much work. No, I'm just kidding. You only suffer. I would say just put your nose to the grindstone, and nothing's handed to you. We all start out at zero and have to work our way up. So you just got to grind it out and do the work. That's the only recipe for success. Really, is just putting the work in and promoting, because the Kickstarter, writing the comic, that's the easy part. That's the fun part.
Mhm.
All this coming on and
The
posting constantly, going to
business,
comic cons. Yeah.
the
So
business of comics is the grind,
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
And,
It's that's 99% of making a comic, for us guys that are just the little indie guys, is promotion. I like I said, I just got done from a 3-day Comic Con. I this today I was calling comic book stores to order my comics, and now I'm coming on and having this interview with you, which I enjoy. But it's and then I had a day job, so 3-day Comic Con, go to my day job. While I'm at my day job, calling comic book stores to pre-order Alpha Dogs through Lunar, promoting, and then coming on here. So it's a lot of work, but I mean, no one, like I said, no one's handing you your dreams. No one's handing you success. You gotta do the work yourself.
okay, guys, as you was pointing out, the business of comics is the hard part. The easy part is what all of us comic book people like to do, is the getting the thing on out of your head and onto paper. That's the fun part.
Hmm.
I swear, no
Yeah.
one no that I will not take that from anybody. How fun it is to actually have an idea and then see it on paper. Or if you're a film major and you have your idea in your head and you'll see it in film, it's the most exhilarating feeling you have. The impact on your bank book, however,
It's a different
is
story.
devastating unless it's positive.
Yes, absolutely.
Unless it's going up,
Yeah.
it's a devastating feeling. So I say that so guys,
Yeah.
it's a grind. And he pointed it out. He's been doing it for over a decade. And so he can speak to it better than I have. But once you get a routine that actually solves that, because as you pointed out, you're doing Kickstarter, you're doing distributions, you're working with distributors to distribute your comics. You now have a publisher, so you've been doing this for a while before even having a publisher, and
Mhm.
all of those are stuff that helps address those little micro situations that eventually gets to something that's more tangible and long lasting. So I do appreciate that with you. So when readers finish Damn Story Detective, what do you hope they walk away with thinking or feeling?
So not to give too much away of how the story ends is I would like them to really um, revitalize their faith because it is a story of a person who is kind of distanced himself and not believing in this metaphysical world that exists out here. It is he's got to come to terms with it. And by the time the story is over, he's going to say, "Wow, I guess God really does exist," because he has to have a little help from the higher power to stop this entity that's beyond the limits of mankind. You know, he cannot end this thing on his own. He needs some help. So,
Mhm.
not like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but
I
that's what
understand. I
plays into the
understand.
part, and plus, yeah,
Guys, just read the book. That's all I'm going to say. Is that just take the comic, read it. I'm literally going. I'm looking to start my own little collection of those indie comics that really kind of generate with me. So I just get the book, read it. It's always a fantastic experience to kind of get into the head of the creator. And the one thing I always like when I'm looking at these things is kind of figuring out where the creator ultimately sees their project. Right. So some people's like, is it a game? Is it live action? Is like when I kind of see like the next iteration of it, I always try to be like when I'm reading it or when I'm looking at it, it's kind of figure out where they're trying to go with it. And
yeah,
I figured out for years, but I think it'd be makes a very good series or a little mini series, like a little detective run on like a show. When I think about it, the way it looks, the way it transitions from old school to new school,
yeah.
I can see a film making
It's only a matter of time before it becomes a miniseries.
now. I just think about like
Yeah,
a
I'm actually
film.
working to try to get into a miniseries right now.
See, I'm too good at this. I am too good at this. All right, so finally, where can people support your comment, follow your journey, and back your Kickstarter? Where can they find it?
So if you go to Kickstarter and write Dime Store Detective, or if you type in my name, Jon Dexter, JonDexter, you'll find my Kickstarter. I'm also on all the socials, Jon Dexter on Facebook. I also have Jon Dexter Comics group on Facebook. I'm on X at Real Alpha Dogs. I'm on Instagram at Alpha underscore Dogs underscore Comic. Because when I first started, I didn't think I'd be able to. I didn't even know if I'd get Alpha Dogs funded. So I made out my socials Alpha Dogs because I didn't know what was going to happen. So that's how I made almost. I wish I would have done it Jon Dexter instead of that because now I've got more comics I'm doing. But that's so you can find me. So yeah,
It's trust me. I understand what you're saying. It's just switching the name of the URLs, and hopefully people don't forget it.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I
yeah.
because I do that myself. I was like, I started off making a item for my comic, and then I realized as I want to do more comics, it's like it's very hard to kind of create different identities online for your comics.
Yeah,
it's,
yeah. Well, I'm an old guy, so I don't know how to do any of that stuff. It's all right. It's all good.
I'm IT, so I figure this out every day of my life. Anyway, John, it's been a fantastic conversation. I do appreciate Dime Store Detective hits that perfect balance of mystery, horror, and humanity that really sticks with you. For everyone watching, make sure you check out Dime Store Detective on Kickstarter and grab Alpha Dogs Volume 1, now available on Lunar Distribution. I'm Sean Fuller, creator of Apollo's Run, the host of Behind the Comics, and brought to you by MyComic.ai, helping comic book creators grow, analyze, and monetize their work. Thank you for all your time, effort, and for not this concludes another episode. So please, guys, enjoy your day. As I say, it's Monday. TGIM, guys. Everyone have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.